Shalom friends, welcome to the Shiur in Mesilat Yesharim, the Path of the Just, written by the Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto of the 18th century, a classic work in Musar, a work that helps us to understand how to develop ourselves and to grow, to understand what life is really all about and to reach these goals. I'm Eliyahu Shir from Chesed Ve'emet, broadcasting from the holy city of Yerushalayim. You can find my site on www.lovingkindness.co, and you can always feel free to be in touch with me about any questions that you have of Torah or to discuss any matters in life. I'm always happy to discuss these things with you. So we're up to chapter 3 on the Mesilat Yesharim, and we're dealing with a section of Zehirut, of watchfulness as it is translated. And this deals with basically the idea of being careful of certain things. Chapter 3 discusses the various divisions of watchfulness and how we can understand ultimately where we find ourselves with watchfulness. Once we understand the various divisions, we will be able to go about how to acquire the attributes of watchfulness. For those who might be new to the Shiur or not quite sure where we are in the Shiur, well, we learned at the beginning of our book that there was a very great rabbi at the times of the Talmud, at the times of the Mishnah really, one of the great Tanaim, Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair, who taught us that in order to grow in life, there are various steps that we need to climb up in order to reach this goal of ultimately becoming very holy people, very great people. And the first step on the rungs of this ladder that we're moving up is called Zehirut, watchfulness, being careful. We need to know that there are certain things we need to avoid. Once we know what to avoid, we can move forwards. Anybody who finds himself in life and he wants to go on a certain path, he needs to know, first of all, what is it that I must be careful to avoid before I can go onto a path of what it is that I need to do. Because if you're not avoiding what should be avoided, then even when a person is on the path of doing, he will keep going back to the bad thing and falling down and collapsing. So we're just doing a quick revision of what we said last week, and then we are continuing. Hine, behold, a person who wants to be careful about himself, he wants to watch what he's doing. There are two things, two ways, two approaches that he needs to look out for. The first approach, a person should contemplate what is the truthful goodness a person should choose. First thing a person must do, if he's on a path of growth, is he must decide in his mind what is the right thing to do. And the second thing, of course, that he needs to know as part of this same equation is he must know about the real bad that he must flee from. First thing we've got to do is to clarify what's good, what I need to do, what's bad that I need to run away from. Vashnia. And the second thing, meaning the second thing after the concept of the first thing that was divided up into two sections, is al-ma'asim ashehu oseh, is on the particular actions that he does. Lirot, to look and see, imhem miklal atov, if they are part of what is good, or miklal hara, or if they are part of that part of thing that we call bad, which means to say, when I'm engaged in something that I call good, I need to know how much of the good is really good and how much of the good I might find to be bad. Which means to say, for example, as we gave an analogy last time, where we said a person's giving charity and he thinks he's a good guy, and he gives the person $10,000. It's a lot of money. And he says to the person, you know something, I'm giving you this, but I want to tell you something. I give only once. What do you mean? The fellow asks him, well, what do you mean? He says, you rubbish. You're good for nothing. I feel sorry for you that you have to ask for the $10,000 and I'm giving it to you. But don't come back and ask me again. When you outweigh the value of the tzedakah that he's giving, you realize that his giving is not really a giving. It's problematic. Of course, I'm happy to accept the $10,000. Thank you very much. You helped me on my path in life and I appreciate it. But do you think I value the criticism that you gave me afterwards? The good that was done was mixed with bad, which means when we engage in something that is of the nature of good, we need to investigate the good to see that there's no bad. Even in doing the good, there may be no bad within it. V'zeh, and this happens b'sha'as ma'aseh, at the time of doing, v'shelo b'sha'as ma'aseh. And we can do this whole process of thinking about this even when we are not actively engaged in the action itself. What does that mean? B'sha'as ma'aseh, at the time that we're involved in the action, is what? Shelo ya'aseh shum ma'aseh, a person shouldn't do anything Mibli sheyishkol oto, without first weighing it out. B'moznei zos hayediah, by means of weighing out this particular idea. I'm just reading the translation, first weighing it on the scales of this understanding. Okay, so the first point is, as he is engaged in the mitzvah, as he engages within the good deed that he's involved in, he needs to think to himself, practically speaking, what is it that he's about to do, and how is he going to do it in a way that is going to be ultimately good? Fun, easy to do. V'shelo b'sha'as ma'aseh, and even when he's not engaged in the deeds that he wants to do, sheya'aleh lefanav zikaron, that he should bring in front of him a remembrance, a memory, kalal ma'asav, of the actions that he's done before, v'yishkol otam, and he should weigh them out. Kamokain, likewise, b'moznei hamishkal, on the scales, on a weighted scale, hazeh, of this weighted scale, lirot, to see, ma yesh bam, what there is in them, mehara, of the bad within the deed that he did, leman yidcheoto, in order that for the future he'll push it aside. So, if it was at the time that he gave his tzedakah, for example, that he made this error, he shouted at the fellow and he told him, listen, I give only once, don't ask me again. He says to him, I'm giving you the $10,000, you should be grateful for it. Anyway, he goes to sleep that night, or 7 days later, or 30 days later, he wakes up, a week later, a month later, he wakes up one day and he says to himself, hold on a second, I need to improve myself. And he begins to think back at the time that he gave his $10,000 check to this poor fellow who needed it. And he starts to contemplate, it's one thing to give, but it's another thing when we have to mention the insult that the person had to receive it and he had to ask for it. Next time I involve myself in charity, I'm going to be more careful so as not to hurt the person when I engage in this mitzvah. Now, I can tell you, running and being part of this organization of Chesed Ve'emet, I've encountered personally all sorts of people, and it's amazing to see the difference in quality of different people. There are some people that see things that we're doing, for example, and they say to us, we see what you're doing, we'd like to help you. And the words that are expressed and the feelings behind it and the simcha that comes from such people, you feel the blessing of when they want to give in order to help the organization. And yet there are other people who, without even giving, will be insulting towards the concept, how dare you even think of asking to further your organization in any way whatsoever? How dare you think of asking if you need to further your growth, you need to do something more, you need to become better, and you need that money to do it. Yet other people will give, and they'll say, please send me the receipts, very important, and they'll give again. And then they'll say the same comments, and different people behave in different ways. And on this level of tzedakah, we have a scale that ranges from minus infinity to infinity. We have all sorts of levels, and you can put yourself in wherever you want to. Think about it for yourself. Each person can examine it for himself. When he gives his tzedakah to somebody who needs it, does he give it in the way of blessing, or is there always something attached to it in a way as if to say, one day you're going to have to pay me back. One day you better show me that you've used that money correctly. One day, this type of an attitude. So the point being is that if a person is working on himself, working on oneself means to engage in the best possible manner so as to improve oneself without destroying everything else around one. Today we have social media. Anybody goes on the social media today, somebody puts up a post of the famous example, they give a picture of a spanner, let's say, they put a picture of a spanner up and they say to people, this is a screwdriver, go. And one person puts up a comment and says something negative, and somebody insults him, and somebody praises him, and somebody does this, and somebody does that. People come up with all sorts of foolishness because they like to become insulting towards a particular matter. If we're involved in growth, we have to learn to see everything in a way of the goodness that exists within that thing. If somebody is posting something and they're explaining to people that they are suffering and going through hardships, we go through and we try to help them as much as we can. If we cannot, we wish them good luck. We say a blessing for them. We wish them good things. We wish they could have the same things that we have and even more. Working on oneself in terms of growth is realizing that the deed we do needs to be done in a way of complete goodness. And once we are finished doing the deed and we come back to it, we say to ourselves, was it only good that I did? Or was there perhaps a mixture of bad in it? If there was a mixture of bad in it, let me push aside the bad so that in the future, when I engage myself in that good thing, I will engage in it to the level of infinity. Every part of my being will be part of this mitzvah, of this goodness, of this happy occasion, to help the person progress, to give them the ability for success without me having to interfere and insult him for who he is at that point in time. Of course, that can apply to anything. I'm only using tzedakah as an example because it's so easy to understand. Uma min hatov, and then a person examines more. He says to himself, in that mitzvah of tzedakah, I gave the $10,000 to this fellow. What was good about it? Well, one thing that was good about it is I gave $10,000. That's a lot of money. That's pretty fair going for a person just to give a sum tzedakah, just to help somebody out. That's a good thing. Lehasmid bo, and a person says, I'm going to do more in it. I feel great about the good thing that I did. It has inspired me to do more of the good thing that I did. And to strengthen myself in it. And it can be anything. If it's tzedakah, it's tzedakah. If it's a good word, it's a good word. Why do we need to say bad things to each other? Why do we need to insult each other? Why do we need to even compliment somebody with an insult? Why do we need to do that? Instead, let us say good things to each other. And when we see that we're saying good things and we feel good about it, we're able to then further that in the next situation where we continue to say even better things. If a person finds within it some sort of bad, then he needs to contemplate and to investigate within his mind. What type of strategy should he take? Lasur min hara, to remove himself from the bad, from this bad, v'litaher mimenu, and to purify himself from it. This is the goal that we're working at. Now, I know a lot of people out there, they've been through Mesilat Yesharim once, twice, 3 times. That's okay. The Ramchal taught us already that he wrote this book for people who already know what he's about to say. Don't think the Ramchal is coming to teach us anything novel, anything new. He's coming to teach us normal parts of life. The problem is, when we work through books, most of us have this Yetzer Hara to rush through to accomplish the goal of finishing the book as fast as possible. And when we complete it, we put the book back on the shelf. I have achieved the goal of working through the Mesilat Yesharim. Wrong, says the Ramchal. Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto says, you best listen to the rules of the game. The rules of the game include the fact that we need to absorb level number 1 fully before ascending to level number 2. Have we absorbed level number 1? No. Then we need to attend to level number 1. If we have absorbed it, we may move forwards to level number 2. Which means to say people are working on the Kedusha, people are working on the humility, the holiness, the humility, the fear of God. They got all sorts of great ideals that they're working on. But as of yet, They still cannot help themselves by speaking badly to a person. They still cannot help themselves of insulting somebody. They still cannot help themselves of speaking the Lashon Hara. They still cannot help themselves of not wanting to give charity to a person who is in need. They would rather insult them. But here it is in level number 1. Level number 1 is Zehirot. Be careful. Watch out. When engaged in an action, examine what it is that we're about to do before we do it, so that when we do it correctly. And even after we've done it correctly, or so to speak, we think we did it correctly, we go to sleep that night and we contemplate the deed that we did, and we say, was it filled with good? Yes, I will continue in that process of good. Was it filled with some bad? I was a little insensitive. Maybe next time I should be a little bit more sensitive. I recall as I gave over that money that I kind of frowned for just a brief moment as I handed it over. Now, I didn't really mean to frown, but when I did so, the receiver might have thought that when I did so, it was kind of like an insulting frown, as if to say, you don't really deserve this. Go and get a job. Work harder. Get your life in order, as people might say, as people might think. Next time I give, I will not frown. I will smile. And I will say, here is this blessing. I want you to succeed. And you know what? An amazing thing. When we give the wealth in a blessed form, we can be assured that God himself will come to the rescue and say, the money itself was given in a blessed manner, and the money will be blessed in a blessed manner. The giver will receive more because he has given with blessing. The receiver will receive more from that same money because it was given with blessing. But when the money is given in a manner of curse, disappointment, insult, the receiver will receive that curse and that insult. The money will lack the blessing. And the person who is giving it will lack the blessing that he could have received from giving it with a happy countenance. And this thing our rabbis have informed about when they said to us in the Gemara in Eruvim Daf Yud Gimel, Noach lo la'adam, it would have been better for a person shelo nivra, that he shouldn't have been created, yoter mishenivra, more than he was created. Better for us to have not been created than that we were created. V'akshav, but now shenivra, that we are indeed created. The rabbis had a big argument about it. Was it better for man to have been created or not created? Look at man. Take a look outside anytime you want to. Is man doing what he should do? He's always fighting with each other, always insulting, disappointed. Look at the world we live in. The Gemara concludes, it would have been better for a person not to have been created. Better that God did not create the world, because we cannot behave with each other in ways of goodness and kindness. But the Gemara continues, V'akshav, and now, shenivra, that a person is created, yifashfesh b'ma'asav, a person should investigate his deeds. Once we are created, once we are active in the world doing things, we need to examine all the deeds that we're involved in. V'ika de amri, and some people say, yemashmesh b'ma'asav, we should feel our deeds. What is the difference? V'tire, and you'll see, sheshnei halashonot hem shtei azharot tovot, that both forms of the language are two different warnings which are good, or more ilot ma'od, and both of them help. So we need two things over here. Number one, we need to appreciate that even the Torah itself says it would have been better for man not to have been created. When we look at the world and we see that people are not interacting with each other in a good manner, helping each other, what is going on in the world? Why is there so much bad? We need to appreciate that the rabbis of 2,000 years ago already saw this, and they said it would have been better for man to never have been created. However, God did create man. And since he has created man, since we are here in the world and we wake up every morning and we engage in all sorts of activities, in all sorts of relationships with people, we need to examine our deeds to see that we're doing what is right. The Ramchal tells us there are two particular ways that we need to examine things. The first way is we need to examine our deeds, and the second way is to feel our deeds. What is the difference between examining our deeds to feeling our deeds? Examining, looking at what we're doing. Feeling, getting an idea of the experience of what it is. In our next lesson, we're going to take it further, and we're going to come to understand what it means to examine our deeds. In the meantime, we've reached the end of the shiur, and I thank you for joining me. I'm Eliyahu Sher from Chesed Ve'emet, my site www.lovingkindness.co. If you've enjoyed the shiur, please like my video by giving it the thumbs up, clicking on the thumbs up button underneath this video, and please share this video with friends and family. Subscribe to my channel and click on the bell button to be notified of future shiurim. Please feel free to be in contact with me via my website, or if you're able to, please become a partner in the activities that we're doing by supporting us financially and helping us to be able to bring out further videos and to be able to teach more. And sometimes there are people that want to learn with us and they're also having financial difficulties. It would be so blessed if people would come to the rescue and say, we would like to help you so that you can also give more of yourself to people who could benefit and who want to benefit from the teachings that you're offering. So if you're able to, please join us and become a partner on our team. In the meantime, I thank you for joining me, and I look forward to another shiur, and I always welcome your comments, your feedback, and your emails. Feel free to be in touch with me. I wish you all the best. Keep well. Shalom, shalom. Bye-bye.